I moved into the house seeking solitude, but silence gave way to something sinister. A faint hum, like a heartbeat, seeped through the walls, filling the emptiness. Each night it grew louder, twisting through my thoughts, consuming my mind. Now, trapped within this pulse, I'm beginning to wonder, am I hearing it, or is it hearing me? It was a brittle, gray afternoon when I first stepped into the house. The sky hung heavy with clouds, dense and thick like walls of an unseen prison, shrouding everything in a quiet, damp suffocation. My new house, a narrow, angular structure of steel and glass, rose ominously from the ground, stark against the barren landscape that surrounded it. I felt an unsettling mix of relief and apprehension as I crossed the threshold, a relief born from the quiet isolation, a place where I could escape the endless clamor of the city, a place where I could finally hear myself think. For the first few days, there was silence, true and profound. My footsteps echoed through empty rooms, accompanied only by the sigh of the wind through unseen cracks in the walls. But then, on the fifth night, something changed. It started as a faint hum, just at the edge of hearing. I remember waking in the darkness, the sound a subtle vibration that pressed against my skull, almost like the beat of a distant drum, soft but persistent. I thought it was a product of my half-sleep, a phantom noise conjured by the silence. But as the days passed, the hum persisted. Each night, it seemed louder, more pronounced, like a low whisper that crept into the corners of the house, curling into the shadows, filling the emptiness with its presence. The hum became my companion, though I would never have called it that. It was a specter, an intruder that stole into my mind and planted seeds of unease. I found myself listening for it, anticipating it, waiting for the night when it would rise again from the depths of silence, a haunting reminder that I was not alone. I searched for its source, pacing through the rooms, pressing my ear against the walls. But the sound seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, seeping through the structure like blood through veins, silent yet alive. Days turned into weeks, and the hum grew more insistent, more invasive. It became a pulse, a rhythmic throbbing that reverberated through the walls, through my bones, through the fragile threads of my sanity. At times, it was almost bearable, a dull noise that settled into the background, an annoyance I could ignore. But then, without warning, it would surge, a violent crescendo that tore through the silence like a scream, leaving me trembling, gasping for breath, clutching at my ears as if I could block it out. I grew desperate, obsessed with understanding the nature of this sound, this curse that had infiltrated my sanctuary. I tried everything: earplugs, noise-canceling headphones, even playing music at deafening volumes. But nothing could drown it out. The hum seeped through, insidious and persistent, slipping beneath the noise like a hidden current, always there, always present. Each night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound that had become my tormentor. The walls seemed to close in around me, pressing down with the weight of their secrets, their silent menace. I felt trapped, caged within a prison of my own making, unable to escape the sound that gnawed at the edges of my mind, tearing at the fragile threads of my sanity. And yet, I could not leave. There was something about the hum, something that held me in its grip, a pull that was both repulsive and irresistible. I began to feel that the sound was alive, that it watched me, waited for me, a presence lurking within the walls, feeding on my fear, my desperation. It became an obsession, a compulsion that drove me to the brink of madness. I spent hours wandering through the house, searching for the source, for any clue that might explain this phantom sound. But the house was silent, defiant in its emptiness, a hollow shell that mocked my search with its stillness. The walls held their secrets tightly, whispering only to the darkness, to the silence, to the hum that pulsed like a heartbeat in the shadows. One night, as I sat in the darkened kitchen, the hum reached a pitch I had never heard before, a high, keening wail that seemed to fill every corner of the house, pressing down on me with a weight that felt almost physical. I clutched at my head, squeezing my temples, willing the sound to stop, to leave me in peace. But it only grew louder, more insistent, a relentless force that tore through the quiet, shattering the illusion of solitude I had sought. I stumbled to my feet, my vision blurred, my hands shaking. I staggered through the rooms, my mind a haze of terror and confusion, feeling the hum wrap around me like a shroud, a suffocating presence that threatened to consume me. I ran from room to room, desperate to escape its grip, but there was no escape. The sound followed me, pursued me, filling the empty spaces with its insidious whisper, its haunting rhythm. In that moment, I knew there was no escape. The hum was part of this house, part of me. It had woven itself into the very fabric of my being, a parasite that fed on my fear, my despair. And as I collapsed onto the floor, gasping for breath, I realized with a chilling clarity that I was no longer alone. The hum was my companion, my tormentor, my jailer, and I was its prisoner. Days bled into nights, and nights into days. Yet time felt as if it had no shape here, in this prison of whispers and echoes. The hum was relentless. It pervaded my waking hours, seeped into my dreams, if I could call them dreams. They were more like flickering visions, scenes that flashed behind my eyes in tortured fragments. Faces, strange faces, twisted in agony or glee, mouths open in silent screams. And through it all, the hum, thrumming beneath the surface, a pulse that tied each fragment together, mocking me with its presence. I began to notice subtle changes in the house, small things at first. The walls, which once seemed smooth and impenetrable, now looked warped, almost as if they pulsed with each beat of the hum. Shadows, long and dark, stretched across the floors even when there was no light, like fingers clawing out from the cracks in the walls. I thought perhaps I was imagining it, a trick of the mind, a product of my frail nerves. But each time I turned, there they were, shifting and undulating as if alive, as if watching me. I couldn't ignore it any longer. The hum was more than a sound. It was alive, a presence that filled every crevice, every corner, breathing through the walls, twisting through the floors, and tightening its grip on my mind. I grew afraid of the house itself, of its rooms, its hallways that stretched on forever in the dark. I became like a prisoner, tiptoeing through the shadows, my heart racing with every creak, every whisper. The worst was the bedroom. Each night, as the hum swelled, I felt the walls close in, pressing down with a weight that seemed almost tangible. My skin tingled with a sick anticipation, a dread that was both familiar and foreign. I felt like prey, caught in the gaze of a predator just beyond sight. And I was sure, so sure, that if I could just turn fast enough, I would see something lurking, waiting, watching. One night, I woke to find the hum had shifted, become sharper, colder. It was no longer a steady drone, but a piercing vibration that rattled my skull, drilled into my thoughts. The sound crawled into my ears, tore through the quiet like claws scraping against glass. I clasped my hands over my ears, desperate to drown it out, but it was useless. The sound was inside me, an infection spreading through every fiber of my being. I fled the room, stumbling into the hallway, the darkness suffocating, thick as smoke. The hum followed, slithering through the walls, curling around me, clinging to my skin. I found myself in the kitchen, fumbling for the light, but the switch wouldn't work. My hands shook as I searched for something, anything to break the silence. But the house seemed to breathe in tandem with the hum, mocking me with its stillness. In a moment of desperation, I screamed, a raw, broken sound that shattered the silence, yet did nothing to dispel the hum. It answered back, rising, swelling, filling the room with a weight that pressed down on my chest, squeezed my lungs until I could barely breathe. I collapsed onto the cold tiles, gasping, clawing at my throat, fighting for air. Then, as suddenly as it began, the hum receded, leaving an echo in its wake that lingered like the fading smell of smoke. I lay there, sprawled on the floor, my body trembling, my mind a mess of jagged thoughts, fragments of terror that refused to settle. Hours passed. I think they were hours. I couldn't be sure. The hum was gone, or at least quiet, lurking beneath the surface, waiting. I sat up slowly, my head pounding, every muscle tense and aching. I knew in that moment that the house would not let me go. It had claimed me, bound me with invisible chains, tied me to the hum that pulsed within its walls. My days became rituals of survival. I avoided the bedroom, slept in the hallway, curled up on the hard floor, hoping that the distance would weaken the hum's hold. But it was no use. The sound seeped through the walls, found me wherever I hid, always waiting, always there. My attempts to distract myself grew increasingly frantic. I spoke to myself in whispers, reciting fragments of memories, old songs, anything to drown out the hum. But my own voice sounded foreign, hollow, as if it too had been tainted by the presence that haunted this house. I wondered sometimes if anyone else could hear it. I thought about calling someone, a friend, anyone, but the idea of bringing another soul into this place filled me with dread. This was my torment, my burden. No one else could understand. No one else could hear the hum. One evening, as the sun sank below the horizon, casting the world in shadows, I caught a glimpse of myself in a mirror. The face staring back was one I barely recognized, pale and gaunt, eyes sunken, haunted by sleepless nights and endless fear. I stared, transfixed, as if seeing a stranger, someone hollowed out by an unseen force. The hum rose again, a soft, mocking whisper that seemed to laugh at my reflection, to taunt me with the knowledge that I was slipping, losing myself to the darkness. I could feel it then, a weight pressing down on my shoulders, heavy, oppressive. The walls seemed to draw closer, the room shrinking, contracting around me, suffocating. I stumbled back, my pulse racing, feeling the house close in, pulling me deeper into its grasp. And as I stood there, trembling, the hum grew louder, louder, filling my head, drowning out my thoughts, until there was nothing but the sound, consuming me, pulling me under. I knew, with a bone-deep certainty, that I would never be free. The days and nights blurred into an endless spiral, and I could no longer tell where one began and the other ended. I roamed through the house like a specter, drawn to every corner, every shadow, searching for something, anything, to explain the hum, the torment it inflicted on me. But the house remained silent, indifferent, its walls cold and unmoving, as if to mock my suffering. One evening, in a fit of anger, I tore at the wallpaper, clawed at the plaster until my hands bled, determined to break through, to reach whatever lay behind. My nails splintered against the walls, my fingers raw, but I could find nothing, nothing but the solid, unyielding surface of the house. The hum rose in response, vibrating through the walls, a guttural pulse that shook the air, making my heart pound with a primal terror. I stumbled back, panting, my vision swimming. I was a fool. The house was alive, yes, but it held no secrets, no answers. The hum was not something I could fight or dispel. It was part of the fabric of this place, woven into the walls, into the very air I breathed. And now, it was part of me, embedded deep within my mind, my soul, whispering its secrets in a language I could not understand. In a moment of clarity, or perhaps madness, I realized what the hum wanted. It wanted me to listen, to surrender, to let it consume me completely. My resistance was futile, a feeble attempt to maintain my sanity in the face of something far beyond my understanding. The hum was patient, relentless, and it would wait, feeding on my terror, growing stronger with each passing moment. I don't know how long I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound as it droned on, a lullaby of despair that lulled me into a numb, dreamless state. Time ceased to matter. The walls closed in, pressing against my skin, and I felt as though I was sinking, being pulled deeper into the house, into the hum itself. Then, one night, something changed. The hum, which had always been a low, constant presence, shifted. It grew louder, sharper, as if demanding my attention. I sat up, my heart racing, my hands trembling. The sound was different now, more insistent, a crescendo that built with a terrifying speed, filling the room with a weight that crushed my chest, stole the breath from my lungs. I stumbled to my feet, disoriented, gasping for air, as the sound rose to a pitch that felt like it would split my skull. I clutched at my head, the pain blinding, and for the first time, I felt something other than fear, rage. A deep, burning anger surged through me, an urge to confront this thing, to demand answers, to end the torment once and for all. I followed the hum through the house, my footsteps echoing in the silence, each step filled with a fierce determination I hadn't felt before. The sound led me to a door at the end of a narrow hallway, a door I had never noticed before, though I had walked through this house 1,000 times. The door was cold, its surface rough and splintered beneath my fingers. I hesitated, my heart pounding, the hum vibrating through the door, calling to me. I took a deep breath and pushed it open, stepping into a room that was shrouded in darkness, an abyss that seemed to swallow the light. The hum filled the space, louder than ever, pressing down on me like a physical weight. I stepped forward, my hands outstretched, feeling my way through the dark, guided by the sound that pulsed through the room like a heartbeat. And then I saw it, a faint glimmer in the center of the room, a dull, red glow that pulsed in time with the hum. I moved closer, drawn to the light, my mind a blur of fear and curiosity. The glow grew brighter as I approached, illuminating a small, metallic device embedded in the floor, wires snaking out from it like veins, disappearing into the walls. I stared at it, transfixed, feeling the hum vibrate through the device, through me a resonance that shook my very bones. The realization hit me like a blow. I had found the source. This device, this relic buried within the house, was the origin of the hum, the thing that had haunted me, consumed me. A laugh, hollow and broken, escaped my lips. This was it, this small, unassuming device, the thing that had torn apart my mind, stolen my peace, reduced me to a shell of who I once was. I felt a surge of triumph, a twisted sense of victory, as if I had finally won some battle I didn't understand. But as I reached down to touch it, the hum shifted again, changing from a low drone to a shrill, piercing wail that stabbed through my mind. I recoiled, clutching my head, the pain blinding, searing through me like fire. The room seemed to spin, the walls closing in, the darkness swallowing me whole. And in that moment, I understood. The hum was not just a sound, not just a machine hidden within the walls. It was alive, a consciousness that fed on my terror, my suffering. It had been waiting for me, drawing me in, luring me to this room, to this device, so it could finally consume me completely. I screamed, a sound of pure, unfiltered agony, as the hum enveloped me, wrapping around my mind, seeping into every corner of my thoughts. I felt myself slipping, losing my grip on reality, my sense of self dissolving into the sound, into the darkness. The last thing I remember is the hum, louder than ever, filling every part of me, drowning out my thoughts, my memories, my very being. It was everywhere, everything, a vast, infinite presence that swallowed me whole. And then there was silence. In the end, silence was never just silence. Thank you for watching and listening.